The day has done all it needs to do. Now only stillness remains. Let your thoughts loosen, like threads unraveling in the dark. What comes next is not to solve or to chase, just a quiet story drifting close. Perhaps it's a voice that remembers you, or a silence that has waited patiently. Let it meet you where you are, and let it lead you gently into rest. The desert stretched endless under a sky bruised with twilight, its sands whispering secrets to anyone who'd listen. In the small town of Red Hollow, tucked against a crumbling mesa, folks didn't listen much. They kept their heads down, their doors locked, and their stories buried. But some stories don't stay buried, no matter how deep you dig. Clara Wade was new to Red Hollow, her boots still caked with dust from a long stagecoach ride. She'd come chasing a promise, a teaching job at the one-room schoolhouse, a fresh start far from the heartbreak she'd left in Boston. At 24, Clara had a sharp mind and a sharper tongue, though she hid both behind a practiced smile. Her auburn hair caught the last light as she stepped off the coach, her single suitcase thumping to the ground. The driver tipped his hat, muttered something about keeping to the lit paths, and was gone before she could ask why. The town was quiet, too quiet, like it was holding its breath. A few weathered buildings lined the main street, a saloon with a creaking sign, a general store with boarded windows, and a church that looked like it hadn't seen a prayer in years. Clara's boarding house was a squat, two-story affair run by Mrs. Evelyn Tate, a widow with eyes like chipped flint, and a voice that carried the weight of too many. "Rooms upstairs, second door," Evelyn said, handing Clara a key. "Supper's at 7. Don't wander after dark." Her gaze lingered, as if measuring Clara's mettle. Clara nodded, though the warning prickled her skin. "I'm not one for wandering," she lied, her smile tight. She climbed the stairs, the wood groaning underfoot, and found her room, a narrow bed, a washstand, a window overlooking the empty street. She unpacked her few belongings, a few dresses, a worn Bible, a locket she never opened, and sat on the bed, listening to the silence. That night, over a supper of tough stew and cornbread, Evelyn spoke of the town's quirks. "Folks here keep to themselves," she said, spoon clinking against her bowl. "Don't ask about the mesa or the old ranch past it. And if you see a light out there, drifting like a lantern, you turn away." Clara's fork paused mid-air. "A lantern?" Evelyn's lips thinned. "Just stories. Ghost tales to scare children. But you're no child, so you'll heed me." Clara didn't press, though curiosity tugged at her. She'd heard ghost stories before every town had them. Yet something in Evelyn's voice, a tremor beneath the steel, made her wonder. After supper, she returned to her room, the warning circling her thoughts, like a moth around a flame. Sleep didn't come easy. The wind howled outside, rattling the window pane. Clara tossed, her dreams tangled with images of Boston, a man's laugh, a slammed door, a promise broken. She woke with a start, her heart pounding. The room was dark, save for a faint glow seeping through the curtains. She rose, barefoot, and peered out the window. Far across the desert, near the mesa's shadow, a light bobbed gently, like a lantern swaying in the wind. It flickered soft and golden, then vanished. Clara blinked, her breath catching. A trick of the eyes, she told herself. Fatigue from the journey. Yet as she climbed back into bed, the image lingered, warm and restless. The next morning, Clara walked to the schoolhouse, a low building with peeling paint and a bell that sagged in its tower. The children, 10 in all, ranging from 6 to 14, watched her with wary eyes. She introduced herself, her voice steady despite the knot in her chest. "I'm Miss Wade," she said, chalk in hand. "We'll start with reading today." A boy with freckles and a crooked grin raised his hand. "Miss, you seen the lantern yet?" The room went still. Clara smiled, though her pulse quickened. "I've only just arrived, so I'm afraid I'm behind on local legends. Care to share?" The boy glanced at his classmates, then shook his head. "Ma says not to talk about it." Clara let it drop, but the moment stayed with her, sharp as a splinter. As she taught, her gaze drifted to the window, to the mesa looming in the distance. That night, as she lay in bed, the wind sang again, low and mournful. She didn't look out the window. Not yet. But she felt at the pull of that light, like a thread tied to her heart, tugging gently. The schoolhouse became Clara's anchor in Red Hollow, its routine a shield against the town's uneasy quiet. Each morning she walked the dusty path, her skirts brushing sagebrush, while the mesa watched from afar. The children warmed to her slowly, their guarded stares softening as she read them tales of far-off places. But the boy with the freckles, Tommy, she learned, kept his distance, his grin fading whenever her gaze lingered too long. By her second week, Clara had settled into a rhythm. Lessons by day, supper with Evelyn by evening, and nights spent wrestling with dreams of Boston. The locket on her knitstand stayed shut, its weight a silent reproach. She hadn't seen the lantern again, though she caught herself glancing toward the mesa more often than she cared to admit. Evelyn's warning echoed in her mind, but so did Tommy's question, its innocence laced with something heavier. One afternoon, as the children copied sums, Clara noticed Tommy staring out the window, his pencil idle. She approached, keeping her voice light. "Something interesting out there?" He flinched, his eyes darting to hers. "Just the wind, Miss Wade." But his fingers tightened around the pencil, and she saw a smudge of fear in his expression. She knelt beside him. "Tommy, if there's something you want to tell me, I'm a good listener." He hesitated, then whispered, "It's the lantern. My pay saw it once years back. Said it called to him, like a song you can't shake. He went out to find it." His voice cracked. "He didn't come back." Clara's breath caught. She glanced at the other children, but they were bent over their work, oblivious or pretending to be. "I'm sorry, Tommy," she said softly. "That must be hard." He shrugged, but his eyes were glossy. "Ma says it's just a story, but I've seen it too, last spring, out by the old ranch. I didn't follow it, though. I ain't that dumb." Clara nodded, her mind racing. "You did the right thing. Stories can be powerful, but they don't always mean what we think." He looked at her, searching. "You believe in ghosts, miss?" She paused, choosing her words. "I believe in stories, and I believe they matter to the folks who tell them." Tommy didn't reply, but he picked up his pencil and resumed his sums. Clara returned to her desk, her calm a fragile mask. That evening, over supper, she tested the waters with Evelyn. "The children mentioned a lantern today," she said, stirring her stew. "Something about an old ranch?" Evelyn's spoon froze mid-air. "Children talk nonsense," she said sharply. You'd do well to keep their minds on books, not gossip. Clara held her gaze. One of them lost his father. He thinks the lantern had something to do with it. Evelyn's face softened, but only for a moment. Tommy's pa was a fool, chasing dreams in the desert. Got lost in a sandstorm, that's all. No lantern needed to explain it. She stood, gathering plates. Leave it be, Clara. But Clara couldn't. That night, the wind was restless again, moaning through the boarding house. She lay awake, her thoughts circling the lantern, Tommy's story, Evelyn's warning. Sleep finally claimed her, but it was thin, fractured by dreams of a man's silhouette against a glowing light, his voice calling her name. The next day, Clara lingered after dismissing the children, tidying the schoolhouse to delay her return to the boarding house. As she swept the floor, a shadow fell across the doorway. She looked up to find a man leaning against the frame, his hat tipped low. He was tall, with a weathered face and eyes like storm clouds, maybe 30 or so. His duster coat was streaked with dust, and a faint smile played on his lips. "Miss Wade, I presume?" His voice was low, smooth as whiskey. Clara gripped the broom. "And you are?" "Jasper Kane," he said, tipping his hat. "I help out around town. Heard we got a new teacher, thought I'd introduce myself." She relaxed, but only slightly. "Kind of you, Mr. Kane. I'm just finishing up here." He stepped inside, his boots scuffing the floor. "Folks say you're from Boston. Must be quite a change coming to a place like this." "It's different," she said, her smile polite. "But I like the children." He nodded, his gaze drifting to the window. "They're good kids. Curious, though. Always chasing stories." He looked back at her, his eyes sharp, like the one about the lantern. Clara's pulse quickened. "Seems everyone's heard that one." Jasper's smile faded. "It's more than a story, Miss Wade. I've seen it myself out by the old ranch. Ain't no trick of the light." He paused, as if weighing his words. "But it's not the lantern you gotta watch for. It's what it's calling you to." She stared at him, the air heavy between them. Before she could reply, he tipped his hat again. "Just thought you should know. Evening, Miss Wade." He turned and was gone, leaving her alone with the echo of his words. That night, Clara stood at her window, the desert vast and dark beyond. No light flickered, but she felt it, the pull stronger now, like a tide tugging at her soul. She closed the curtains, her fingers trembling, and whispered to herself, "It's just a story." But the words felt hollow, and sleep was a long time coming. The days in Red Hollow began to blur, each one stitching itself to the next with lessons, suppers, and the ever-present hum of the desert wind. Clara threw herself into teaching, guiding the children through arithmetic and poetry, her voice steady even as her thoughts wandered. Tommy's story clung to her, as did Jasper's cryptic warning. She hadn't seen him since that afternoon in the schoolhouse, but his words, "It's what it's calling you to," looped through her mind like a half-remembered song. Clara tried to keep her curiosity in check. She smiled at Evelyn's gruff advice, nodded at the townsfolk's curt greetings, and ignored the mesa's shadow looming over the town. But at night, alone in her room, the pull grew stronger. She hadn't seen the lantern again, not since that first night, yet its absence felt louder than its presence. It was as if the desert was waiting, watching, holding its breath. One Saturday, with no classes to anchor her, Clara decided to explore. She told herself it was practical. She needed to know the town if she was to live here. After breakfast, she slipped on her shawl and stepped into the morning light, the air crisp with the promise of autumn. The main street was quiet, save for a dog nosing through an alley. She passed the saloon, its doors still shut, and the church, its steeple leaning like a weary sentinel. Her feet carried her beyond the town's edge, where the desert opened wide, its sands rippling under the sun. The mesa stood in the distance, its crags catching the light. Clara paused, her heart quickening. The old ranch, Tommy had said. Jasper, too. She scanned the horizon, half expecting to see a flicker of gold, but there was nothing, just sand and sky. A voice broke her thoughts. Didn't figure you for a wanderer, Miss Wade. She turned to find Jasper Kane, his horse tethered to a scraggly tree nearby. He was whittling a piece of wood, the knife glinting in his hand. His smile was easy, but his eyes held that same storm cloud weight. I'm just stretching my legs, Clara said, her tone light. No harm in seeing the lay of the land. He raised an eyebrow, setting the wood aside. Depends on what part of the land you're seeing. He nodded toward the mesa. That way's got a habit of keeping folks who go too far. Clara crossed her arms. You sound like Evelyn. All warnings, no answers. Jasper chuckled, but it was a dry sound, like leaves skittering over stone. Evelyn's got reasons for her cautions. So do I. He stood, pocketing the knife. But you're not one to heed warnings, are you? She met his gaze, unflinching. I like to understand things for myself. He studied her, then sighed. Fair enough. Come with me, then. I'll show you the ranch or what's left of it. But you stick close, and you don't go poking where I don't lead. Clara hesitated, her instincts warring. Jasper was a stranger, yet his bluntness felt honest, or at least less guarded than Evelyn's. And the ranch. It was the heart of the story, the thread tying Tommy's loss to the lantern's glow. She nodded. All right, but I'm holding you to that. They walked in silence, the desert swallowing their footsteps. Jasper led her along a faint trail, skirting the mesa's base. The air grew heavier, the wind carrying a faint, sweet scent like sage, mixed with something older, earthier. After an hour, they reached a cluster of ruins. A collapsed barn, a house reduced to charred beams, a well choked with sand. The ranch was a skeleton, its bones bleaching under the sun. This was a Hargrove place, Jasper said, his voice low. Family of 4, back in '62. Father, mother, 2 girls. They were doing well cattle, crops, even a bit of silver from the mesa. Then one night, they were gone. No trace, no note. Just gone. Clara's skin prickled. And the lantern? Jasper's jaw tightened. Started showing up after. Folks say it's tied to the Hargroves, though no one agrees how. Some think it's their spirits calling for help. Others say it's a lure, drawing fools to the same fate. He glanced at her. I don't know what I think, but I've seen it, Clara. It's real. She swallowed, her eyes tracing the ruins. Why show me this? Why tell me? He shrugged, but his gaze was steady. You're asking questions. Figured you'd end up here eventually. Better you see it with me than alone. Clara didn't reply, her thoughts tangled. The ranch felt alive, its silence heavy with memory. She stepped toward the well, peering into its depths. The air was cool, damp, and for a moment she thought she heard a whisper, a voice, faint and fleeting, calling her name. She stepped back, her heart racing. "Did you hear that?" Jasper frowned, scanning the ruins. "Hear what?" She shook her head, forcing a smile. "Nothing. Just the wind." He didn't look convinced, but he didn't press. "Come on. Sun's getting low. We should head back." As they retraced their steps, Clara's mind churned. The whisper had been real. She was sure of it. Not the wind, not her imagination. Something in the ranch wanted to be heard, and it had chosen her. The thought was equal parts thrilling and unsettling, like standing at the edge of a cliff. That night, back in her room, Clara sat by the window, the desert dark beyond. She didn't look for the lantern, not yet, but she felt its pull, stronger than ever, like a heartbeat echoing her own. She touched the locket on her knitstand, her fingers lingering. Boston felt far away, its pain dulled by the mystery unfolding here. For the first time in months, Clara felt alive, tethered to something bigger than her own regrets. Sleep came slowly, her dreams woven with whispers and golden light. The routine of Red Hollow wrapped around Clara like a warm quilt, familiar yet fraying at the edges. She taught her classes, her voice steady as she guided the children through spelling and history, but her thoughts kept drifting to the Hargrove Ranch. That whisper in the well, soft, fleeting yet undeniable, had lodged itself in her chest, a quiet ache she couldn't shake. She hadn't told Jasper, nor Evelyn, nor anyone. Some things, she reasoned, were better kept close until they made sense. Tommy's behavior shifted in subtle ways. He was quieter now, his crooked grin rare, his eyes often fixed on the window during lessons. Clara watched him, wondering how much of his father's loss he carried, how much the lantern's story weighed on his young shoulders. She wanted to ask, but the memory of his guarded whisper held her back. Instead, she gave him small kindnesses, an extra moment to finish his work, a gentle word when he seemed lost. One evening, as Clara graded papers by lamplight in the schoolhouse, a knock startled her. Evelyn stood in the doorway, her shawl pulled tight against the chill. "Burning the midnight oil, are you?" she said, her tone gruff but not unkind. Clara smiled, setting her pen down. "Just catching up. The children are eager learners." Evelyn snorted, stepping inside. "They're eager, all right. Eager to fill your head with nonsense." She paused, her eyes narrowing. "You've been asking about the lantern." Clara's pulse quickened, but she kept her voice even. "It's hard not to, when it's all anyone hints at." Evelyn's lips pursed. "I told you to leave it be. But you've been out to the ranch, haven't you? With that Kane boy?" Clara blinked, caught off guard. "How did you?" "Small town," Evelyn cut in. "Folks talk. Jasper's got a good heart, but he's got his own ghosts. And you, girl, you're stirring things best, left settled." Clara leaned back, her chair creaking. "I'm not stirring anything. I'm trying to understand. Tommy's hurting, Evelyn. He thinks the lantern took his father. Doesn't that matter?" Evelyn's face soft, but her eyes stayed hard. "Of course it matters. But digging up old stories won't bring his pa back, nor the Hargroves, nor anyone else. The lantern's a tale, Clara. A sad one, but just a tale." Clara wanted to argue, to tell her about the whisper, the pull she felt, but Evelyn's expression stopped her. There was fear there, buried deep, and something else, grief, maybe. "I'll keep that in mind," Clara said finally, her voice quiet. Evelyn nodded, turning to leave. At the door, she paused. "If you see that light again, you walk away. Promise me that." Clara didn't promise, but she nodded, and Evelyn was gone, her footsteps fading into the night. Alone again, Clara stared at the papers, the words blurring. She didn't believe the lantern was just a tale. Not anymore. The next day, Clara found herself drawn to the general store, hoping to glean more about the town's history. The store was dim, its shelves cluttered with tins and bolts of cloth. The owner, Mr. Hargrove, no relation to the ranch family, he'd assured her, greeted her with a nod. He was a wiry man with a mustache that seemed to have a life of its own. "Need anything special, Miss Wade?" he asked, polishing a glass jar. "Just browsing," Clara said, her eyes scanning the shelves. "Though I've heard about the old Hargrove Ranch. Folks seem reluctant to talk about it." Mr. Hargrove's hand stilled. "With good reason. That place is cursed, or so they say. Family vanished, left everything behind, clothes, tools, even supper on the table. Folks searched for weeks, but nothing. Then the lantern started showing up." He shook his head. "Bad business." Clara's heart quickened. What do people think happened? He shrugged, resuming his polishing. "Some say they ran off, debts or trouble chasing them. Others say the desert took a sandstorm, maybe, or wolves. And then there's the ghost talk. Folks claim the lantern's their daughter, Lily Hargrove, leading people to something. Ain't no proof, though." Clara's breath caught. "Lily?" Mr. Hargrove nodded. "Youngest of the family. Barely 16, pretty as a sunrise. Folks loved her, said she had a laugh like bells. If anyone's spirit's out there, it'd be hers." Clara thanked him and left, her mind spinning. Lily Hargrove. A name gave the story weight, made it human. That night she dreamed of a girl with golden hair, holding a lantern, her laugh echoing across the desert. The dream felt real, too real, and when Clara woke, her cheeks were wet with tears she didn't remember shedding. The following afternoon, she found Tommy lingering after class, tracing patterns in the dust on his desk. "Miss Wade," he said, not looking up, "you ever feel like something's waiting for you?" Clara knelt beside him, her voice gentle. "Sometimes." "What's waiting for you, Tommy?" He glanced at her, his eyes wide. "The lantern. I saw it again last night out by the mesa. It was moving like it wanted me to follow." He swallowed. "I didn't. But I wanted to." Clara's chest tightened. "You're brave for staying put," she said. "But if you see it again, you come tell me, all right? We'll figure it out together." He nodded, but his expression was distant, as if the lantern's call still lingered. Clara watched him go, her resolve hardening. She needed answers, not just for herself, but for Tommy, for the town, for the ghosts that wouldn't rest. That night, Clara stood at her window, the desert vast and silent. No light flickered, but she felt it the pull, like a thread tied to her soul. She touched her locket, its cool metal grounding her. "Lily," she whispered, testing the name. The wind answered, soft and mournful, and Clara knew she was closer to the truth, though it scared her as much as it called her. The days grew shorter in Red Hollow, the sun dipping behind the mesa earlier each evening, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch toward Clara's heart. She kept to her routine teaching, grading, suppers with Evelyn, but the lantern's pull was a constant hum beneath her thoughts. Lily Hargrove's name had settled into her like a seed taking root. She hadn't seen the light again, nor had Tommy mentioned it since their talk, but his quiet glances told her the story wasn't done with him either. Clara began to notice the town's edges more keenly, the way folks avoided the mesa's shadow, the quick hush that fell when certain names were mentioned. Even Evelyn, sharp as she was, softened when Clara steered conversation toward the Hargroves, redirecting with talk of weather or chores. It was as if Red Hollow had made a pact to bury its past, but the past refused to stay down. One crisp morning, Clara found a note slipped under the schoolhouse door, scrawled in a child's uneven hand. Asterisk, meet me at the Oak Grove, noon. Don't tell. Asterisk. No signature, but she knew it was Tommy. The Oak Grove was a cluster of gnarled trees just outside town, a place the children sometimes played. Clara tucked the note into her sleeve, her stomach knotting with unease. She taught her lessons on instinct, her mind elsewhere, and when noon came, she dismissed the class early and headed out. The grove was quiet, the trees' twisted branches casting dappled shade. Tommy sat on a fallen log, kicking at the dirt. He looked up as Clara approached, his freckles stark against his pale face. "You came," he said, almost surprised. "Of course I did," Clara said, sitting beside him. "What's this about Tommy?" He fidgeted, pulling at a loose thread on his sleeve. "I saw it again. The lantern. 2 nights ago, out by the ranch. It was closer this time, like it was waiting." His voice dropped to a whisper. "I heard something too. A voice. It said my name." Clara's breath caught, the memory of the whisper in the well flooding back. What kind of voice? Soft. Like a girl, maybe. It wasn't scary, but he trailed off, his eyes distant. It felt like it knew me, like it wanted me to come closer. Clara's hand rested on his shoulder, steadying them both. "You didn't go, did you?" He shook his head. "No, but I wanted to. I keep thinking about P, how he followed it, and never came back. What if it's trying to tell me something?" Clara's chest tightened. She wanted to tell him it was just a trick of the mind, a story spun from grief, but her own experience stopped her. "Tommy, listen to me. Whatever's out there, you don't have to face it alone. You tell me if it happens again, all right?" He nodded, but his gaze drifted toward the mesa, as if drawn by an invisible thread. Clara followed his eyes, the weight of the moment pressing on her. She needed to know more, not just for Tommy, but for herself. That evening, Clara sought out Jasper. She found him at the saloon, nursing a drink at a corner table. The place was nearly empty, the air thick with the smell of whiskey and dust. Jasper looked up as she approached, his expression unreadable. "Miss Wade," he said, tipping his hat slightly. "Didn't expect to see you here." "I need to talk," she said, sitting across from him. "About the lantern and Lily Hargrove." His fingers tightened around his glass. "You've been digging." "Tommy's scared," she said, her voice low. "He's hearing things, seeing things. I need to know what's out there, Jasper. For his sake." Jasper leaned back, his eyes searching hers. "You're in deep, aren't you? All right. But this ain't a story for a saloon." He stood, tossing a coin on the table. "Walk with me." They stepped into the night, the air cool and sharp. Jasper led her to the edge of town, where the desert stretched, dark and endless. He stopped, his gaze fixed on the mesa. "Lily Hargrove was the heart of that family," he said. "Folks say she had a gift, knew things she shouldn't, felt things others didn't. When the Hargroves vanished, some thought she'd seen it coming, tried to warn them. Others thought she caused it." Clara frowned. "Caused it? How?" Jasper shrugged. "Superstition. Folks said she talked to spirits, that she'd wander the desert at night, chasing lights no one else saw. After they were gone, the lanterns started appearing. People put 2 and 2 together, came up with 5. Clara's mind raced. "You think she's still out there? Her spirit?" Jasper's jaw tightened. "I don't know. But I've heard her, Clara. A voice, soft, calling my name. Same as Tommy's hearing now. It's why I stay clear of that ranch." Clara's skin prickled. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" He met her gaze, his eyes heavy. "Because knowing doesn't help. It just pulls you in deeper." They stood in silence, the wind whispering around them. Clara felt the pull again, stronger now, like a tide, dragging her toward the unknown. "I need to see it for myself," she said finally. "The lantern, the ranch, all of it." Jasper's expression darkened. "You're playing with fire, Clara." "Maybe," she said, "but I can't turn away. Not now." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Then you don't go alone? Tomorrow night I'll take you. But you listen to me out there. You hear?" Clara nodded, her heart pounding. As she walked back to the boarding house, the desert seemed to hum with secrets, the mesa a silent witness. That night she dreamed of Lily again, a girl with golden hair, holding a lantern, her eyes pleading. The whisper came again, clearer now. "Clara, come find me." She woke with a start, her breath ragged. The locket on her knitstand gleamed in the moonlight, and for the first time in months she reached for it, her fingers trembling. Boston was far away, but its ghosts were nothing compared to the ones waiting in Red Hollow. The air in Red Hollow carried a sharper bite as evening settled, the desert cooling under a sky streaked with fading gold. Clara spent the day distracted, her lessons mechanical, as her thoughts churned with Jasper's words and Tommy's fear. The promise of tonight going to the ranch with Jasper, chasing the lantern's truth, felt like a stone in her chest, heavy but impossible to ignore. She hadn't told Evelyn, knowing the older woman would try to stop her. This was her path now, hers and Jasper's, and maybe Lily's too. After supper, Clara slipped out of the boarding house, her shawl wrapped tight against the chill. Jasper waited at the edge of town, his horse saddled but tethered, a lantern of his own hanging unlit from his belt. His face was shadowed under his hat, but his eyes caught hers, steady and serious. "You sure about this?" he asked, his voice low. Clara nodded, though her pulse thrummed. "I need to know, Jasper. For Tommy. For myself." He studied her a moment, then untethered the horse. "We walk from here. Stay close and don't wander." They set out, the desert swallowing the town's faint lights behind them. The mesa loomed ahead, its silhouette jagged against the stars. The wind was soft tonight, barely a whisper, yet it carried that same sweet, earthy scent Clara had noticed before. Her boots crunched on the sand, the sound loud in the stillness. Jasper moved with quiet purpose, his gaze scanning the darkness, as if expecting the lantern to flare at any moment. The Hargrove Ranch appeared sooner than she expected, its ruins stark in the moonlight. The collapsed barn, the charred house, the well, they looked different at night, less broken and more alive, as if the shadows breathed with memory. Clara's skin prickled, her breath shallow. She glanced at Jasper, but he was focused on the ground, his jaw tight. "Where do we start?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He pointed toward the well. "That's where folks say the lantern's seen most. We wait, and we listen." They settled near the well, sitting on a flat stone that might once have been part of a wall. The silence was heavy, broken only by the occasional rustle of sand. Clara's eyes darted to the mesa, the ruins, the empty horizon. No light flickered, no voice called. Yet the pull was there, stronger than ever, like a thread tugging at her heart. Minutes stretched into an hour. Jasper shifted beside her, his shoulder brushing hers. "You ever wonder why you're here, Clara?" he asked, his voice soft. "Not just Red Hollow, but here, chasing this?" She looked at him, surprised by the question. "I came for a job, a new start. But now?" She trailed off, her fingers grazing the locket in her pocket. "I don't know. It feels like something brought me here. Like I was meant to find this story." Jasper nodded, his gaze distant. "I've felt that once. Years ago, when I first saw the lantern. Thought it was calling me to something big, answers maybe, or redemption. But all it gave me was questions." Clara's chest tightened. "What happened when you saw it?" He hesitated, his fingers tracing the edge of his unlit lantern. "I was younger, dumber. Followed it one night, out past the mesa. It moved like it knew where it was going, always just out of reach. Then I heard her, Lily, I think. She said my name, soft, like she was standing right behind me. I turned, but no one was there. Next thing I knew, the light was gone, and I was alone, miles from town. Took me till dawn to get back." Clara shivered, though the air wasn't cold. "Did you ever go back?" He shook his head. "Once was enough. But you." He looked at her, his eyes searching. "You're different. You don't just want answers. You want to fix it." She didn't know how to respond, so she didn't. They sat in silence, the desert stretching around them. Then, faint but unmistakable, a glow appeared near the mesa's base, a soft, golden light bobbing gently like a lantern carried by an unseen hand. Clara's breath caught, her body tensing. Jasper's hand gripped her arm, his voice a whisper. "Stay still. Just watch." The light drifted closer, weaving through the ruins. It paused near the well, its glow casting long shadows that danced across the broken beams. Clara's heart pounded, the pull now a roar in her chest. She heard it then, a whisper, faint but clear. "Clara." Not her imagination, not the wind. It was Lily, or something wearing her name. She stood, ignoring Jasper's hissed warning. "Lily?" she called softly, stepping toward the light. It flickered, as if responding, then moved toward the house's remains. Clara followed, her feet moving almost against her will. Jasper was behind her, his steps heavy, but she didn't look back. The light stopped at the threshold of the ruined house, where a doorway gaped like a wound. Clara peered inside, the glow illuminating a floor littered with debris, shards of glass, a broken chair, a child's shoe. The whisper came again, sharper now. Find me. Clara's hand trembled as she reached for the locket, its weight grounding her. She wanted to step inside, to chase the voice, but Jasper's hand on her shoulder stopped her. Don't, he said, his voice tight. That's how it gets you. Clara turned to him, her eyes blazing. It's not trying to hurt me. It's asking for help. He shook his head, his grip firm. You don't know that. We're leaving. Now. Reluctantly, she let him pull her back, the light fading as they retreated. By the time they reached the well, it was gone, the desert dark once more. Clara's chest ached, her mind reeling. She'd heard Lily, felt her, and the truth was closer than ever. But so was the danger, and Jasper's fear was a warning she couldn't ignore. As they walked back to town, the silence between them was heavy. Clara's thoughts were a tangle of fear and resolve, the whisper echoing in her mind. She knew she'd return to the ranch, with or without Jasper. The lantern wasn't just a story anymore. It was a call, and she was answering. The morning after the ranch, Clara woke with a heaviness that clung like damp cloth. Her dreams had been restless, filled with golden light and Lily's whisper, each call pulling her deeper into the desert's secrets. She went through her lessons mechanically, her voice guiding the children while her mind replayed the night before Jasper's fear, the lantern's glow, the voice that knew her name. Tommy's eyes met hers once during class, a flicker of shared understanding, but he said nothing, and she didn't press. By afternoon, Clara's resolve had hardened. The lantern wasn't just a ghost story. It was a plea, and Lily Hargrove was at its heart. She needed to know why Lily called, what she wanted, and how it tied to Tommy's father, to the town's silence. Jasper's warning echoed, but so did her own certainty. She couldn't turn away, not now. After dismissing the children, Clara lingered in the schoolhouse, her gaze drifting to the mesa through the window. A soft knock broke her thoughts. Evelyn stood in the doorway, her face etched with worry. You didn't come to supper last night, she said, her voice gruff but laced with concern. And you've got that look like you're chasing trouble. Clara managed a smile, stacking papers to keep her hands busy. I'm fine, Evelyn. Just adjusting. Evelyn stepped inside, her eyes narrowing. Don't lie to me, girl. You were out with Jasper, weren't you? At that cursed ranch. Clara's hands stilled. Who told you? Doesn't matter, Evelyn snapped. What matters is you're stirring things that ought to stay buried. You think you're the first to chase that lantern? Others have tried Tommy's pa, Jasper's brother, 6 fools before them. None came back whole, if they came back at all. Clara's breath caught. Jasper's brother? Evelyn's lips tightened, as if she'd said too much. Caleb. 3 years ago. Saw the light, heard a voice, went out to find it. Found nothing but sand and sorrow. He's alive, but he ain't right, wanders the desert now, muttering about a girl who calls him. She leaned closer, her voice low. You want to help Tommy? Stop feeding his hopes. Stop chasing ghosts. Clara's chest tightened, Evelyn's words cutting deep. But the whisper in the well, the voice at the ranch, they were real as real as the locket in her pocket. "I'm not chasing ghosts," she said quietly. "I'm trying to understand. Someone has to." Evelyn's eyes softened, but her voice stayed hard. "Understanding won't bring back the dead. Go home, Clara. Rest, and stay away from that place." She left without another word, the door creaking shut behind her. Clara sat alone, the schoolhouse silent. Evelyn's warning was rooted in care, but it only fueled her need to know. Jasper's brother, Caleb, new piece of the puzzle, another soul touched by the lantern. She needed to find him, or at least learn more. That evening, Clara sought Jasper again, finding him at the edge of town, repairing a fence. The sun was low, painting the desert in hues of amber. He glanced up as she approached, his expression wary. "You look like you've got questions," he said, setting down his hammer. Clara crossed her arms, the wind tugging at her shawl. "Evelyn told me about Caleb. Why didn't you?" Jasper's jaw tightened, his eyes dropping to the fence. "Caleb's my business, not yours." "It's my business if he saw the lantern," she said, her voice firm. "If he heard Lily. I need to know, Jasper. For Tommy, for all of us." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Caleb was like you, curious, stubborn. 3 years back he got fixated on the lantern. Said it was calling him, promising answers. I tried to stop him, but he went out one night, alone. Came back days later, half-starved, raving about a girl in the desert, a light that knew his sins. He hasn't been the same since. Lives out near the mesa now, in a shack he built himself." Clara's heart pounded. "Can I talk to him?" Jasper shook his head. "He don't take kindly to strangers. Barely talks to me. But," he hesitated, his eyes searching hers, "if you're set on this, I'll take you tomorrow. Just to see him, nothing more. You hear me?" Clara nodded, relief mixing with unease. "Thank you, Jasper." He picked up his hammer, his voice low. "Don't thank me yet. You might not like what you find." That night, Clara lay awake, the wind singing outside her window. She held her locket, its familiar weight a tether to her past, but it felt lighter now, overshadowed by the desert's mysteries. She thought of Lily, of Caleb, of the lantern's golden glow. What did it want? Redemption, as Jasper had said, or something else? The whisper returned in her mind. Find me, and she knew she was close, dangerously close to the truth. The next day she met Jasper at dawn, the air crisp and the mesa cloaked in mist. They rode on his horse, the desert unfolding around them. Clara's thoughts were a tangle of hope and fear, the locket heavy in her pocket. Whatever lay ahead, she was ready, or so she told herself. The lantern's call was hers now, and she wouldn't turn back. The desert morning was cool, the mist curling around the mesa like a shy spirit. Clara clung to Jasper's back as they rode, the horse's hooves a steady rhythm against the sand. Her breath misted in the air, her thoughts fixed on Caleb Jasper's brother, another soul claimed by the lantern's call. She hadn't slept much, her dreams tangled with Lily's voice and the golden glow that seemed to know her heart. The locket in her pocket felt heavier today, a reminder of the past she carried and the mystery she chased. Jasper was silent, his shoulders tense under his duster. The mesa loomed closer, its crags softened by the mist, but no less imposing. Clara sensed his reluctance, the weight of revisiting his brother's pain, But he'd agreed to this, and she trusted his lead. The desert stretched vast around them, its silence both peaceful and unnerving, as if it held its breath for what was. They reached a narrow path winding up the mesa's base, where a shack huddled against the rock little more than boards and tarp, weathered by sun and wind. Jasper reined in the horse, his voice low. "This is it. Let me talk first." Caleb's unpredictable. Clara nodded, sliding off the horse. Her boots sank into the sand, her heart thudding. The shack looked abandoned, but a thin thread of smoke rose from a makeshift chimney, hinting at life within. Jasper approached, knocking softly. "Caleb, it's me. Got someone with me who wants to talk." Silence answered, then a shuffle of movement. The door creaked open, revealing a man who might once have resembled Jasper, but was now a shadow of him. Caleb was gaunt, his hair wild and streaked with gray, his eyes sunken but sharp, like a hawk's. He wore a tattered coat, his fingers clutching a carved wooden charm that dangled from his neck. "Who's she?" Caleb's voice was rough, suspicious, his gaze darting to Clara. "Clara Wade," she said, stepping forward, her voice calm despite her nerves. "I'm the new teacher. I'm trying to understand the lantern, Caleb. I heard you saw it." Caleb's eyes narrowed, his grip tightening on the charm. "Lantern," he muttered, almost to himself. "Always the lantern. You heard her, didn't you? The girl. She calls you too." Clara's breath caught. "Lily?" Caleb flinched at the name, his gaze snapping to hers. "You know her name? That's dangerous, girl. Names given power." He stepped outside, the door banging shut behind him. "Come in, then, but don't touch nothing." The shack was dim, cluttered with oddities, stones etched with symbols, scraps of paper scrawled with words, a rusted lantern hanging from a beam. It smelled of sage and earth, the air thick with something Clara couldn't name. She sat on a crate, Jasper leaning against the wall, his eyes never leaving his brother. Caleb perched on a stool, his fingers restless, tracing the charm. "Tell me about Lily," Clara said softly. "What did you see?" Caleb's gaze drifted, as if seeing past her, past the shack, into the desert itself. She was light, golden, like the sun trapped in a glass. "I saw her 3 years back, out by the ranch. She moved, not walking, just drifting. Called my name soft, like a sister I never had. Sighed she needed help, needed someone to listen." His voice cracked. "I followed. Thought I could save her." Clara leaned forward, her heart racing. "What happened?" Caleb's eyes darkened. "The light led me to the mesa, to a cave. Ain't no cave there now, but I swear it was real. Inside it was cold, like winter in July. She was there, Lily, or something wearing her face. Said her family was trapped, caught in some in-between place. Needed someone to set him free." He shuddered. "Then the light went out and I was alone. Wandered for days. Never found that cave again." Jasper shifted, his voice tight. "Caleb, you sure it wasn't a dream? The desert plays tricks." Caleb's head snapped toward him. "It was real, Jas. As real as you standing there. She's still out there, waiting. And now she's got her." He pointed at Clara, his finger trembling. "You heard her, didn't you? She's chosen you." Clara's skin prickled, the weight of his words settling deep. I've heard a voice, she admitted. At the ranch. It said my name, told me to find her. Caleb nodded, unsurprised. She picks the ones who listen, the ones who carry hurt. His eyes flicked to her pocket, where the locket rested. You got pain, girl. She smells it, like a wolf smells blood. Clara's hand instinctively covered her pocket, her pulse quickening. What does she want? How do I help her? Caleb laughed, a dry, bitter sound. Help? You can't help the dead. They don't want saving, they want company. You go too far, you'll end up like me, or worse, like Tommy's pay. Jasper stepped forward, his voice sharp. That's enough, Caleb. She's not going down that road. Caleb's eyes softened, but only slightly. You can't stop her, Jas. The lantern's got its hooks in her now. Clara stood, her mind reeling. Thank you, Caleb. I'm sorry for what happened to you. He waved her off, his gaze already drifting. Just don't follow the light too far, girl. It don't lead where you think. Outside, the mist had lifted, the mesa stark against the sky. Jasper led her back to the horse, his silence heavy. As they rode toward town, Clara's thoughts churned. Caleb's story was fractured, but it fit with hers, the voice, the pull, the sense of a truth just out of reach. Lily wasn't just a ghost. She was a key, and the cave was a clue. Clara knew she'd have to find it, though the thought scared her as much as it called her. That night, in her room, she held the locket, its metal cool against her palm. She didn't open it, but she felt its weight, her past and present twining together. The wind sang outside, soft and restless, and for a moment she thought she heard it again. Clara, faint, like a breath in the dark. She closed her eyes, her resolve steady. The lantern was waiting, and she was ready to answer. The desert's chill lingered in Clara's bones as she walked to the schoolhouse the next morning, her thoughts a tangle of Caleb's fractured tale and the lantern's persistent call. The mesa loomed in the distance, its presence a constant reminder of the cave Caleb had described, a place that wasn't there anymore, or so he claimed. Clara's lessons that day were subdued, her voice guiding the children through reading while her mind wandered to Lily, to the Hargroves, to the in-between place Caleb spoke of. Tommy's eyes met hers once, his expression heavy with unspoken questions, but he stayed quiet, and she didn't push. After class, Clara lingered, tidying the schoolhouse to delay her return to Evelyn's scrutiny. The locket in her pocket felt like a stone, its weight pulling her back to Boston, to the man who'd promised forever and left her with nothing but this keepsake. She hadn't opened it since arriving in Red Hollow, but its presence was a tether, grounding her even as the lantern's mystery tugged her forward. She needed to find that cave, to hear Lily's voice again, to understand what the light wanted. As she locked the schoolhouse, a shadow fell across the path. Tommy stood there, his cap twisted in his hands. "Miss Wade," he said, his voice small, "I gotta tell you something." Clara knelt, her heart quickening. "What is it, Tommy?" He glanced around, as if the desert itself might overhear. "I went out last night, to the ranch. I know I shouldn't have, but the lantern, it was so close, right by the mesa. I heard her again, miss. She said your name." Clara's breath caught, a chill racing down her spine. "My name?" He nodded, his eyes wide, clear as day. "Clara, come." That's what she said. I didn't follow, I swear, but I saw where the light went toward a crack in the mesa, like a door in the rock. Clara's mind raced, Caleb's story echoing in her ears. A cave, he'd said, at the mesa's base. "Tommy, you did right coming to me," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. "But you can't go out there again. It's not safe." He looked down, his shoulders slumping. "I just want to know about Pay. If she's calling you, maybe she knows something." Clara's heart ached. She touched his shoulder, her voice soft. "I'll find out, Tommy. I promise. But you stay in town, you hear?" He nodded, reluctant, and shuffled off, leaving Clara alone with her thoughts. The crack in the mesa, the cave, it was real, or had been. She needed to see it, but not alone. Jasper had been clear about the dangers, and Caleb's haunted eyes were warning enough. She'd need his help, whether he liked it or not. That evening, Clara found Jasper at the saloon, leaning against the bar with a glass he barely touched. The room was quiet, the usual hum of voices subdued. He looked up as she approached, his expression wary but not surprised. "You've got that look again," he said. "What now?" Clara sat beside him, her voice low. "Tommy saw the lantern last night. Heard a voice Lily's, I think. She said my name, Jasper, and the light went toward a crack in the mesa, like the cave Caleb mentioned." Jasper's glass froze halfway to his lips. "Tommy's got no business out there. Neither do you." "I know," she said, her eyes steady. "But I can't stop now. Lily's calling me, Jasper. I heard her at the ranch, and Tommy heard her say my name. There's a cave or something like it, and I need to find it. I need you to come with me." He set the glass down hard, his jaw tight. "You heard Caleb. That light doesn't lead to answers. It leads to ruin. You think you're different, but you're not. It'll take you same as it took him." Clara leaned closer, her voice fierce. "I'm not Caleb, and I'm not Tommy's father. I'm doing this for them, for Lily, for this town that's choking on its own secrets. You can help me, or I'll go alone." Jasper's eyes searched hers, a storm brewing behind them. Finally, he sighed, his shoulders slumping. "You're stubborn as hell, Clara Wade. Fine. Tomorrow night we go to the mesa. But you listen to me out there, and if I say we leave, we leave." Clara nodded, relief washing over her. "Deal." That night she lay awake, the wind a soft murmur outside her window. She held the locket, her fingers tracing its edges, but didn't open it. Boston felt like a dream now, its pain dulled by the desert's pull. Lily's voice echoed in her mind, Clara. Come, and she felt the thread of connection, fragile but unbreakable. She was close, so close to unraveling the mystery. The next evening, as the sun dipped low, Clara met Jasper at the town's edge. He carried his lantern, unlit, and a coil of rope slung over his shoulder. His face was grim, but he nodded as she approached. "Ready?" "As I'll ever be," she said, her voice steady despite the flutter in her chest. They set off, the desert swallowing the town behind them. The mesa grew larger, its shadows deep and unyielding. Clara's heart pounded, the locket a quiet weight in her pocket. Whatever lay ahead, cave, ghost, or truth, she was ready to face it, or so she told herself. The lantern's call was a song now, and she was singing back. The mesa loomed like a silent giant as Clara and Jasper approached, its crags swallowing the last of the twilight. The air was crisp, heavy with the scent of sage and something older, like memory trapped in stone. Clara's boots crunched softly on the sand, her heart a steady drumbeat in her chest. Jasper walked beside her, his lantern swinging unlit from his belt, his face carved with resolve and something close to dread. The rope coiled over his shoulder swayed with each step, a reminder of the unknown they were walking into. Neither spoke as they reached the mesa's base where the rock rose sheer and unyielding. Clara scanned the surface, searching for the crack Tommy had described, a door in the stone, he'd said. The darkness made it hard to see, but she felt it, that same pull that had haunted her since her first night in Red Hollow. It was stronger here, a current tugging at her soul, whispering her name. "There," Jasper said, pointing to a shadowed crevice where the mesa's face split, barely wide enough for a person to slip through. It was hidden unless you knew to look, cloaked by the rock's folds. "That's gotta be what the boy saw." Clara nodded, her throat tight. "That's it. The cave Caleb mentioned." Jasper's eyes met hers, sharp and searching. "We go in, we stay together. No chasing lights, no wandering off. You hear me?" "I hear you," she said, though her voice trembled with anticipation. She touched the locket in her pocket, its weight a quiet anchor. "Let's go." Jasper lit his lantern, its glow casting flickering shadows on the rock. He went first, squeezing through the crevice, and Clara followed, the stone cool and rough against her hands. The passage was narrow, the air damp and heavy, smelling of earth and time. Her breath echoed in the tight space, her pulse loud in her ears. The pull was stronger now, almost a voice urging her forward. The crevice opened into a small cave, its walls smooth and curved, as if carved by water long ago. Jasper's lantern illuminated scattered relics, a rusted tin, a broken bottle, a scrap of faded cloth. Clara's eyes darted to the center, where a faint glow pulsed, not from Jasper's lantern, but from something deeper, golden and soft, like a heartbeat in the dark. "Lily," Clara whispered, her voice barely audible. The glow flickered, as if responding, and she stepped forward, her boots scuffing the stone floor. Jasper grabbed her arm, his grip firm. "Clara, don't." She turned to him, her eyes blazing. "It's her, Jasper. I can feel it. She's here." He shook his head, his face pale in the lantern's light. "You don't know what's here. Could be nothing but a trick." But Clara couldn't turn back. The glow pulsed again, and with it came the whisper. "Clara, find me clearer now," a girl's voice, soft and pleading. She pulled free of Jasper's grip, her steps slow but steady, drawn to the light. It led to a corner of the cave where the stone dipped into a shallow alcove. There, nestled in the shadows, was a small, tarnished lantern, its glass cracked but glowing with an inner warmth that shouldn't have been. Clara knelt, her fingers trembling as she reached for it. The metal was cold, yet the light felt alive, pulsing like a breath. "Lily," she said again, her voice steady now. "What do you want?" The whisper came again, louder, filling the cave. "Free us." It wasn't just Lily's voice, now others joined, a chorus of murmurs, soft but urgent. Clara's heart pounded, her eyes stinging with unshed tears. She saw flashes in her mind, a family laughing around a table, a girl with golden hair, a sudden darkness swallowing them whole. The Hargroves trapped, waiting. Jasper was beside her now, his voice tight. "Clara, we need to go. This ain't right." She shook her head, her fingers closing around the lantern. "They're trapped, Jasper. Lily, her family, they're caught somewhere, not dead, not alive. They need us." He stared at her, his eyes wide. "You're talking like Caleb now. You can't trust what you hear." But Clara felt the truth in her bones. The lantern's light flared, and with it came another vision, a girl's hand reaching out, a man's voice calling, a child's laugh cut short. She saw Tommy's father, his face etched with hope, as he followed the light, only to vanish into the mesa's heart. Her hand tightened on the locket, its pain twining with the caves. "We can't leave them," she said, her voice fierce. "I don't know how, but we have to try." Jasper's jaw clenched, but he didn't argue. He knelt beside her, his lantern casting a steady glow beside the strange, pulsing light. "What do we do?" Clara's mind raced, the whispers growing louder, a chorus of need. "We take it," she said, lifting the lantern carefully. "We bring it out to the ranch where it started. Maybe that's what they need, to be remembered, to be brought home." Jasper's eyes darkened, but he nodded. "All right, but we move fast, and we don't stop." They retraced their steps, the lantern's glow steady in Clara's hands, its weight heavier than it should have been. The crevice felt tighter now, the air colder, as if the mesa itself resisted their leaving. When they emerged, the desert was dark, the stars sharp overhead. Clara clutched the lantern, its light a beacon in her hands, and felt Lily's presence, close and urgent. As they rode back toward the ranch, the wind rose, carrying a faint, mournful song. Clara's heart ached, the locket and lantern twining her past and present. She didn't know what freeing the Hargroves meant, but she knew she was closer than anyone had been before. The desert night was vast and still as Clara and Jasper rode toward the Hargrove Ranch, the lantern's golden glow pulsing in Clara's hands. Its light cast strange shadows on the sand, shifting like memories too fragile to hold. The mesa receded behind them, its presence a weight on Clara's shoulders, but the pull she'd felt for weeks was clearer now, guiding her like a compass. Jasper's horse moved steadily, his silence heavy, his grip on the reins tight. Clara sensed his unease, but her resolve was unshaken. The lantern wasn't just a relic, it was Lily's voice, the Hargrove's plea, and perhaps even Tommy's father, all bound in its flickering light. The ranch's ruins emerged from the darkness, their broken shapes stark in the lantern's glow. The charred house, the collapsed barn, the well, they seemed to lean closer, as if drawn to the light Clara carried. She slid off the horse, her boots sinking into the sand, the lantern warm against her palms. Jasper followed, his own lantern unlit, his eyes scanning the ruins like a man expecting ambush. "Where now?" he asked, his voice low, rough with tension. Clara's gaze drifted to the house, where the lantern's light had paused that night she'd followed it. "There," she said, pointing to the gaping doorway. "It started here. It needs to end here." Jasper's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "Stay close." They approached the house, the lantern's glow illuminating the debris within shattered glass, a splintered table, the child's shoe that had haunted Clara's dreams. The air was thick, heavy with the scent of ash and something sweeter, like faded flowers. Clara's heart pounded, the whispers from the cave echoing in her mind. Asterisk, free us. She stepped over the threshold, the floor creaking underfoot, and felt a shift like the world holding its breath. Lily, she said softly, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. I'm here. Show me what to do. The lantern flared, its light flooding the room, and the whispers returned, a chorus of voices young, old, desperate, hopeful. Clara saw flashes again, a woman kneading dough, a man whittling by the fire, two girls giggling over a shared secret. The Hargroves alive whole until the darkness came. She saw Lily, her golden hair catching the light, her eyes wide with fear as she clutched this very lantern, her voice calling out to someone, anyone. Clara's eyes stung, her grip tightening on the lantern. What happened to you? She whispered. How do I help? The light pulsed, and a new vision came. Lily running into the desert, the lantern in her hands, her family's voices fading behind her. She reached the mesa, the crack in the stone, the cave. She hid the lantern there, her breath ragged, her hands trembling. They'll find it, she thought, or perhaps said, asterisk, they'll know we were here. Then the darkness swallowed her and the vision faded. Clara gasped, her knees buckling. Jasper caught her, his hands steady on her arms. Clara, what's wrong? She shook her head, her voice hoarse. I saw her. Lily. She hid the lantern in the cave like a message. She wanted someone to find it, to remember them. Jasper's eyes widened, his grip tightening. Remember them? Clara, this ain't about memory. It's about letting go. You keep holding that thing, it'll take you too. But Clara couldn't let go. The lantern's light was part of her now, twined with the locket's weight, with her own need to mend what was broken. They're not gone, Jasper, she said, her voice fierce. They're trapped, like Caleb said. In between. If we can bring them back here, maybe what? He snapped, his fear breaking through. You don't even know what you're asking. She met his gaze, her eyes blazing. I'm asking for a chance. For them, for Tommy, for us. Jasper's shoulders slumped, his fight draining away. All right, he said quietly. What do we do? Clara looked around the room, the lantern's light steady now, its whispers softer, but still present. Her eyes fell on the hearth, cold and choked with ash, where the Hargroves had once gathered. Here, she said, stepping toward it. This was their heart. We set it here. She knelt, placing the lantern on the hearth, its glow reflecting off the blackened stone. The whispers grew louder, a song now, mournful but hopeful. Clara's hand lingered on the lantern, her heart aching. She thought of Tommy's father chasing this light, of Caleb, broken by it, of her own past, carried in the locket she still couldn't open. Come home, she whispered, her voice breaking. Please. The light flared, blinding, and the room seemed to shift, the walls flickering with shadows that weren't there before. Clara saw them, the Hargroves, faint but real, standing together. Lily was at the center, her eyes meeting Clara's, a smile breaking through her fear. Thank you, she seemed to say, though no sound came. Then the light dimmed and they were gone, the lantern's glow fading to a soft ember. Clara's breath caught, tears spilling down her cheeks. Jasper's hand rested on her shoulder, his voice soft. Is it done? She nodded, her throat tight. I think so. They left the house, the lantern still on the hearth, its light no longer calling. The desert was quiet, the wind a gentle sigh. As they rode back to town, Clara felt lighter, the pull gone, replaced by a quiet peace. The locket in her pocket was still heavy, but it didn't hurt as much. She'd freed the Hargroves, or at least given them rest. Now she had to face her own ghosts. The dawn broke over Red Hollow with a gentleness Clara hadn't noticed before. The desert bathed in soft pinks and golds as she walked to the schoolhouse. The lantern's weight was gone from her hands, but its memory lingered, a quiet warmth in her chest. The Hargroves' faces, Lily's smile, the family's fleeting presence in the ruined house stayed with her, not as a haunting, but as a gift. She'd given them rest, or so she hoped, and in doing so, found a peace of her own. The children were livelier that morning, their voices filling the schoolhouse with a brightness that eased Clara's heart. Tommy sat at his desk, his freckles catching the light, his eyes meeting hers with a shy smile. He hadn't spoken of the lantern since their talk in the oak grove, but she saw the change in him, a lightness, as if a shadow had lifted. She didn't ask, and he didn't tell, but the understanding between them was enough. After class, Clara lingered, her fingers tracing the chalkboard's edge. The locket in her pocket felt different now, less a burden and more a choice. She hadn't opened it, not yet, but the thought didn't scare her as it once had. Boston was still there, its pain a soft ache, but Red Hollow had given her something new, a purpose, a story that was hers to carry. A knock at the door broke her thoughts. Jasper stood there, his hat in his hands, his storm cloud eyes softer than she'd ever seen. "Thought I'd check on you," he said, his voice low. "After last night." Clara smiled, stepping outside to join him. The air was warm, the mesa a silent witness in the distance. "I'm all right," she said. "Better than I've been in a long time." He nodded, his gaze drifting to the horizon. "What you did, I don't know if I could have. You gave them something, Clara. Maybe Tommy's pa, too." Her throat tightened at the mention of Tommy's father. She'd seen him in the lantern's visions, chasing the light, his hope a mirror of her own. "I hope so," she said softly. "I think they're at peace now. Lily, the Hargroves, all of them." Jasper's eyes met hers, a flicker of something admiration, maybe, or understanding. "And you? You at peace?" She hesitated, her hand brushing the locket. "Getting there," she said, and meant it. "What about you? Caleb?" Jasper's jaw tightened, but his voice was steady. "I saw him this morning. He's different. Quieter, like something settled in him. Said he dreamed of a girl with golden hair, smiling. Didn't know what it meant, but he seemed lighter." Clara's heart lifted, a tear prickling her eye. "That's something, isn't it?" "It is," he said, his smile faint but real. "You're something, Clara Wade." They stood in silence, the desert stretching around them, its secrets softer now, less urgent. Jasper tipped his hat, his voice gentle. "Take care, Clara. Town's lucky to have you." As he walked away, Clara watched him go, her heart full. She returned to the boarding house that evening, the wind a soft hum outside her window. Evelyn was kinder at supper, her gruffness tempered by a warmth Clara hadn't noticed before. "You look different," the older woman said, her eyes sharp. "Like you've put something down." Clara smiled, stirring her stew. "Maybe I have." That night she sat by her window, the desert dark and endless beyond. She held the locket, its metal cool against her palm, and for the first time in months she opened it. Inside was a faded photograph, a man's face, his smile a promise that had broken her heart. She looked at it, felt the ache, but it didn't swallow her. She closed the locket, setting it on the knit-stand, and felt lighter, as if she'd let go of something she'd carried too long. The lantern didn't appear again, nor did the whispers. The mesa stood silent, its shadows no longer calling. Clara taught her classes, laughed with the children, shared quiet evenings with Evelyn. Tommy's grin returned, his eyes bright with stories of his own, and Jasper's occasional visits brought a warmth she didn't name, but didn't shy from. Red Hollow was home now, its dust and secrets part of her. The Hargrove story had ended, or perhaps it hadn't. It lived in her, in Tommy, in the town that no longer flinched at the mesa's shadow. Clara didn't know what came next, but she was ready, her heart open to whatever the desert brought. As she lay in bed, the wind sang its familiar song, soft and restless. She closed her eyes, Lily's smile a final gift, and drifted into sleep, the lantern's glow a memory that would never fade. Not all spirits seek to frighten. Some just wish to be remembered. If their tale lingered with you, let it rest with your breath. Sleep well tonight. And if you hear a whisper in your dreams, maybe it's just the end of the story.